The hotel room smelled of expensive cologne and wine. My body was tangled in sheets that were not mine, with a man who was not my husband. His hands traced my skin with urgency, his lips burning against my neck, and my heart pounded with both desire and dread. The world outside that room ceased to exist, until my phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit up with the name I had promised to love forever, Mark. My husband. I froze. Daniel whispered for me to ignore it, his voice dripping with confidence, but my chest tightened as guilt and adrenaline collided. In that moment, between passion and betrayal, I knew I was gambling with the life I had built for over a decade. My husband believed I was hundreds of miles away on a business trip, while in truth, I was only an hour away from our home, wrapped up in lies that were starting to catch fire. Movie camera audience appreciation message. Before I take you deeper into this story, I just want to pause and say a big thank you to every single one of you who has subscribed to this channel. You have no idea how much your support means. It is the fuel and energy that keeps me going. And to all new and returning viewers who are yet to subscribe, I cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you will not want to miss what comes next. Also, I want you to engage with me. Share your thoughts in the comments immediately after this hook intro. Your voices make this space alive. My name is Claire, and this is my confession. I am 35 years old, an American woman born and raised in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Pennsylvania. On paper, I had everything people dream of: a loyal husband, a stable marriage, a beautiful teenage daughter, and a house that looked like it belonged in a postcard. My husband, Mark, worked hard as a financial analyst. He was steady, disciplined, and safe. He provided me with security, but with each passing year, the spark between us dimmed into routine. I used to adore the safety Mark represented. But after 10 years, safety began to feel like suffocation. I missed feeling wanted, desired, unpredictable. I craved more than polite kisses at the kitchen counter and nights spent in separate worlds, him on his laptop, me scrolling through my phone. The first crack in my marriage appeared at a networking conference 3 years ago. That was where I met Daniel. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of smile that could disarm anyone. His confidence filled every room he entered, and his attention made me feel like the most important woman alive. Unlike Mark, Daniel noticed the little things: how I laughed nervously when I felt seen, how my eyes lingered on wine lists longer than menus, how I twisted my hair when I lied. He saw through me, and instead of judging, he pulled me deeper in. Our first night together happened in a hotel bar that turned into a hotel room upstairs. It was reckless, thrilling, and terrifying. I told myself it was a mistake, that it would never happen again. But Daniel had a way of drawing me back, and I let him. Soon, one mistake turned into a pattern. At first, my excuses were real. My job in public relations often required travel. But when the trips slowed down, my lies sped up. I began creating business trips that did not exist, packing suitcases, booking fake flights, even buying trinkets from airport gift shops to sell the illusion. Mark trusted me completely, and that blind trust became my cover. I should have felt guilty. And I did, sometimes. But more often, I felt alive. With Daniel, I rediscovered a version of myself that had been buried under laundry, grocery lists, and school schedules. He made me feel reckless, dangerous, and wanted. He reminded me of the woman I was before I became Mark's wife, before I became someone's mother. That woman was hungry for more. But every lie I told came with a weight I had to carry. Each time I kissed Mark goodbye before a fake trip, my stomach churned. Each time my daughter hugged me tighter than usual, I wondered if she somehow knew I was leaving for more than work. Yet I continued, convincing myself that I could balance both worlds. Until the balance started to crack. One Friday evening, after a supposed 4-day conference in Chicago, I dragged my suitcase through the front door. Mark greeted me with his usual warmth, his arms wrapping around me, his lips brushing against mine like nothing had changed. But as I pulled back, something in his eyes lingered on me longer than usual. It was not suspicion exactly, but a quiet calculation, as if he was studying me. I pushed the thought aside and went upstairs to unpack. When I opened my drawer to place my clothes back in, I noticed something chilling. My favorite necklace, the one I always wore during trips, was sitting neatly on the dresser. I had forgotten it at home. Yet Mark never asked me why I left without it. He never mentioned it. He just watched me with that same unreadable look. It was a small detail, but in my gut, I felt the shift. He knew something. And in that moment, for the first time, the thrill of my double life began to feel like a trap I could no longer control. The morning after I returned from that so-called business trip, I woke to the sound of Mark shuffling in the kitchen. His movements were steady, precise, like a man who already had his day mapped out. For years, I had taken comfort in that predictability. Now, every small action felt like it hid suspicion. I walked into the kitchen, my hair still damp from a quick shower. Mark looked up and smiled, but his eyes did not match the warmth of his lips. He handed me a cup of coffee, just the way I liked it, 2 sugars, a splash of cream. "You must be tired," he said casually, almost too casually. "Travel takes a toll." I forced a smile, hoping my heartbeat was not visible in my chest. The air between us felt heavier than usual, though he gave no direct sign of doubt. Still, I knew Mark well enough to recognize when his silence carried questions. The truth was, my lies were beginning to tangle. At first, they had been neat, rehearsed stories, flight numbers, hotel names, client dinners. But over time, the details began to blur. I could not keep track of which city I had claimed last month or which colleague supposedly traveled with me. One evening, I mentioned staying at the Marriott during a conference. Weeks earlier, I had told him it was the Hilton. His expression barely shifted when I spoke, but I caught it, a flicker in his gaze, quick as lightning but sharp enough to slice through my confidence. Mark had always been a man of patterns, of logic. If he was suspicious, he would not confront me without evidence. He would wait, observe, and collect facts until he could crush me with the truth. Meanwhile, Daniel grew bolder. He would text me late at night, knowing full well that Mark might be beside me in bed. "I miss you," he would write. "When is our next escape?" My hands trembled as I typed back in the dark, pretending to scroll through work emails while Mark's steady breathing filled the room. The thrill of secrecy was intoxicating, but the danger of being caught pressed down on me. I began to notice Mark's subtle shifts. He checked the mileage on my car more often, pretending to tidy up the garage. He glanced at my phone when it buzzed, though he never asked to see it. Sometimes, I caught him staring at me across the dinner table, as if memorizing my face, as if looking for cracks in the woman he thought he knew. One night, after putting our daughter to bed, I came downstairs to find him sitting in the living room with his laptop open. On the screen was a map of flight schedules. My chest tightened. He closed it quickly, offering a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Just checking something for work," he said. But I knew. The walls of my double life were closing in, and I had no escape plan. Still, I could not stay away from Daniel. He had become my addiction. Every time I thought about cutting things off, he would pull me back in with his charm, his hunger, his ability to make me feel alive. I convinced myself that as long as I was careful, Mark would never uncover the truth. But my carelessness betrayed me. One afternoon, Mark called me while I was supposedly in Boston for a 2-day trip. I ignored it at first, my body pressed against Daniel's in a hotel bed, my phone vibrating on the nightstand. When I finally answered, I forced a tired voice. "Sorry, I was in meetings all day," I lied. Mark's tone was calm, too calm. "Strange," he said. "I called your office, and they said you were not scheduled for any out-of-town work this week." My blood ran cold. My mouth went dry. I scrambled for words, blaming miscommunication, inventing a last-minute assignment. Mark did not argue. He simply said, "We will talk when you get home." His voice was steady, but beneath it, I heard the fracture. For the next 2 days, I could barely breathe. Every touch from Daniel felt hollow, every kiss laced with dread. My mind was not with him, it was at home, where my lies were unraveling faster than I could patch them. When I returned, Mark was waiting in the living room. My suitcase sat untouched by the door, a silent witness to my deception. He looked at me with eyes that burned, not with anger, but with quiet devastation. "I checked the hotel you said you stayed at," he said, his voice low. "No record of you ever being there. But I did find this." He held up a folded receipt, my name printed clearly across the top. It was from a hotel 2 towns over, the same place Daniel and I had been meeting. My knees nearly gave out. The room spun around me. Mark did not yell. He did not need to. The evidence was undeniable. For a moment, silence consumed us. Then he spoke again, each word deliberate, like a knife pressed into my skin. "How long have you been lying to me, Claire?" The world I had built on lies collapsed in that single breath. I opened my mouth to answer, but no words came. My throat burned, my chest ached, and the man I once vowed to honor now stared at me as if I were a stranger. And in that silence, I realized the truth was no longer something I could hide. Mark's question hung in the air like smoke in a burning room. "How long have you been lying to me, Claire?" His voice was not raised, but it carried a weight that pressed me down harder than any scream could. I wanted to lie again. I wanted to twist the truth, to soften the blow, to say it was only once or twice. But my throat closed, and tears began spilling down my cheeks before words could. Mark's eyes did not move from me. His stare was cold, unflinching, and it stripped me bare. "I asked you a question," he repeated, quieter this time, but sharper. My lips trembled. "For over a year," I whispered. The confession felt like a gunshot in the room. Mark's face twitched as if struck. His jaw clenched, his hands balled into fists at his sides. The silence that followed was worse than shouting. My heart screamed inside me, begging for him to yell, to curse, to do something that matched the fire raging in his eyes. Instead, he turned away, his back to me, his shoulders shaking as he struggled to breathe. When he spoke again, his voice cracked. "I gave you everything, Claire. I trusted you with my whole life. I never thought you would be the one to destroy it." I stepped forward, desperate to touch him, to beg, to plead. "Mark, please. Do not touch me," he snapped, his voice rising for the first time. He spun around, his eyes red with unshed tears. "You lied to my face. You lied to our daughter. Every time you walked out that door with a suitcase, you were walking out on us. Who are you? Who the hell are you?" My knees gave way, and I fell onto the couch, sobbing. I tried to explain, to tell him about the loneliness, the routine, the hunger for more. But every word sounded hollow, selfish, unforgivable. I felt invisible, I choked out. Daniel made me feel alive again. At the sound of his name, Mark's fist slammed against the wall so hard I flinched. "Do not you dare say his name in this house," he shouted. His face twisted with rage and heartbreak all at once. "You destroyed me, Claire. You destroyed us." The commotion must have carried upstairs because our daughter, Emily, appeared at the top of the stairs, her sleepy eyes wide with confusion. "Mom? Dad? What is happening?" Mark's head dropped into his hands. He could not even look at her. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. "Go back to bed, honey," I said softly, but my trembling betrayed me. Emily's eyes darted between us, sensing the fracture, the danger, the truth that children always see even when parents try to hide it. She turned slowly and walked back upstairs, but not before glancing at me with eyes that pierced deeper than Mark's. Disappointment. Hurt. Fear. Mark stood in silence for a long moment, his chest rising and falling like waves in a storm. Finally, he spoke, his tone flat and final. "Pack your things. Get out." The words sliced through me. "Mark, please, we can work through this." "There is no working through this," he said coldly. "You made vows, Claire. You broke every single one. I will not live with a liar. I will not raise our daughter in a house built on your filth. I cried harder, begging, but his face was stone. He walked past me, up the stairs, and shut our bedroom door. The sound echoed through the house like the closing of a tomb. That night, I packed a small bag and left. The silence of the house as I walked out felt like it was erasing me. My daughter's room light was off, but I imagined her lying awake, hearing every whisper of destruction. Daniel was the first person I called. My hands shook as I dialed, praying he would answer, praying that the man I had risked everything for would be there to catch me. But when he picked up, his voice was distant, irritated. Claire, it is late. What do you want? My heart stung. Mark knows, I whispered. He threw me out. I need you. There was a pause, then a sigh. Claire. I cannot do this. I am seeing someone else. I told you this was never permanent. You knew what this was. The phone slipped from my hand. My world collapsed again, twice in one night. The man who had made me feel alive had used me like a placeholder, and the man who had trusted me with his soul had cast me out. I spent the next few weeks in a small apartment across town, my life reduced to silence and regret. Emily refused to visit me. Mark cut me off completely, speaking to me only through lawyers. Neighbors whispered. Friends avoided me. I had gone from a wife and mother with a perfect suburban life to a woman alone, stripped bare by her own lies. Nights were the worst. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment where I could have chosen differently. Every kiss with Daniel, every lie told to Mark, every fake business trip. The memories no longer thrilled me. They haunted me. I ruined everything for a thrill that lasted hours but cost me a lifetime. When I looked in the mirror, I did not recognize the woman staring back. She was broken, hollow, desperate. She had gambled her family for lust and lost it all. And the cruelest part? There would be no forgiveness. Mark had closed the door on me forever, and I could not blame him. My story does not end with reconciliation or healing. It ends with regret, with an empty bed in a silent apartment, with a daughter who no longer looks at me the same, with a husband who once loved me but now sees only betrayal. I was a wife who lied about business trips. Now I am just a woman who lost everything because she thought excitement was worth more than loyalty.